It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We've got on the line, welcome back to the show, Senator Tom Cotton is with us. Senator Cotton, thanks so much for spending time with us this morning.
Good morning, Paul. It's good to be on with you.
Yes, sir. I just want to say, thanks for being on the forefront. I know you're definitely supporting, you've had some great ideas about reforming our immigration system. And I understand that there is now talk about needing to get something done when it comes to E-Verify. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Paul, I am going to be introducing legislation that would expand to all employers and make permanent our electronic employment verification system. So this was a system that was created as a pilot program in 1996, but it's been successful. It's gotten better over the last 23 years. Rather than going into work and submitting the paper documents that so many people are familiar with on the first day of the job, say a driver's license or a concealed carry permit or a passport, there'd be a very quick online system. That system works. Its error rate is infinitesimally small, and it's been proven time and again to be the single best deterrent from employing illegal immigrants. So it helps turn off the jobs magnet in our country. There's a lot of debate in the news, obviously, about border barriers and more border patrol agents and more border detention facilities, all of which are very important. But one of the main reasons that people immigrate illegally to this country is to take jobs from Americans. If they know that they're going to have to clear an effective electronic verification system, they're much less likely to make that journey in the first place. Moreover, it helps hold employers accountable. When employers are saying, we don't want to use E-Verify because it doesn't work, what they really mean is it does work. They want to get cheap, unskilled, and low-skilled labor into the country so they're not having to pay higher wages to American citizens. That's not what I want to see. I want to see all Americans taking part in the prosperity that America is creating.
Absolutely. And I think, certainly that reflects, I think, the sentiment of a vast majority of Arkansans. It's the common sense thing to do. It is about economic security as well as national security. Again, folks, we're talking with Senator Tom Cotton. We're talking about E-Verify. You mentioned the low wages that employers tend to want. So they tend to want illegal immigration. And then you have maybe the other side that sees illegal immigrants as maybe a future dependent class, also future votes for liberal progressive policies. And I kind of feel like that's why this crisis at the border, it's not something, it's gotten worse, but it's not something that just happened overnight. This has been going on for years, if not, a decade or more. And now we finally have, President Trump bringing this to the forefront of the nation's attention. And I think that's a positive thing to try to fix this problem.
Paul, it really goes back in some ways to the 1986 immigration law, which Ronald Reagan said was one of his worst mistakes in office. That bill gave an amnesty up front in return for enforcement later. Unfortunately, we didn't get the enforcement. We didn't get border barriers. We didn't get more interior enforcement at the workplace. We didn't get reform laws to allow the deportation of violent and felonious illegal aliens that we were all promised, because so many people in Washington joined forces to stop all that. They all wanted the amnesty, big business, pardon me, and a lot of politicians and their backers across the country, they wanted more cheap, unskilled, and low-skilled labor. It's understandable. I get the economic point of it, but we owe it to our own citizens to protect American jobs for American citizens. Moreover, we want to welcome the kind of immigrants who can succeed in our country, who are going to contribute to the economy, who are going to help grow the economy, and ultimately become citizens, not just temporary guest workers that come in and take work and then go back home. I'd much rather see immigrants who want to become American citizens rather than folks who are coming in here to work for a few months to take jobs that Americans could be doing.
Why do you think the left is so offended when, your ideas on more of a merit-based immigration system where, we want people who come into this country that already have skills, that they can participate in the economy, they can pay taxes, do things like that. Why do you think today that is so offensive to those? They even say maybe it's even racist sometimes.
Well, that's a very good question, Paul. Sometimes I think it reflects the left's reflective desire for ever more immigration. And it's not just here in America. You see it in Europe as well. Look what Angela Merkel did in Germany a few years back, just throwing open the doors to anyone who could come. I think it's also a bit of a left-wing challenge to the very idea of the nation state, that, a nation state with borders and a people is something that is a good thing. I think it's one of the great developments in modern human history. I mean, one reason why we have freedom, why we have security, why we have prosperity is that we have a nation with borders, with a government that can provide police services and the rule of law and protection for our property and protection from threats from abroad. 500, 1,000 years ago, you didn't have those things. What happens in movies and TV shows like Game of Thrones. The nation state is the way that we protect ourselves, that we grow our own wealth, that we have a community. A lot of folks on the left are very cosmopolitan in their view of the world. They think the nation state is somehow inherently suspect, and that anybody who wants to be an American should be considered American. That's not the way I view things. I was elected by 3 million Arkansans to represent the interest of Arkansans, not the interest of foreigners. I may wish them well, but it is not my duty to make sure that they are prospering and they are safe. It's my duty to do that for Arkansans and for all Americans.
We're talking with Senator Tom Cotton. Senator Cotton, the president declares this national emergency. A lot of people saw this coming. Do you think it's an emergency down there? Do you think it is a crisis on our southern border?
We do have a genuine crisis on our southern border, Paul, and I'll tell you one reason why is that our immigration system, both our physical infrastructure and our legal system, is not equipped for the kind of migration patterns we're seeing now, in part because of well-intentioned law passed by both parties. We are essentially having to let anyone who shows up in our border with a child that they claim is their child in, who rarely then ever shows up again. Immigration has changed in recent years, so we still have a lot of young men coming in to work in jobs, but increasingly we have family units, people with children who are coming in saying they want to claim asylum. They want to be a refugee. Now, I would say that a lot of those claims are not well-grounded because they're not claiming they're facing persecution because of their religion or political views or sex. They're just claiming that conditions in Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador are dangerous and poor. That's true, but that's what most of the world calls life. That doesn't make us responsible for them. But our immigration system is not well equipped to either detain families together or to track families once we release them into the United States. That's one reason why it's so urgent. Not just that we build the border barriers that get so much attention, but that we change those asylum laws, that we provide more family detention centers and give more flexibility to our border professionals, so we make sure that we don't have a functional open border. So if anybody shows up with a child that they claim asylum, they just get released in the country and never come back.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. During the State of the Union address, the president talked about putting the cartels, the drug dealers, and the human traffickers out of business. That scenario that you just raised, somebody comes to, with a child they claim as their own, and then you never see him again. Sex trafficking is a real problem down there, and that gets so little media attention.
Yeah, so these networks of traffickers will move anything that they can make a dime off. They'll move illicit drugs like marijuana and heroin and fentanyl. They will move stolen goods, and they'll move art and other artifacts. But in this case, they will also move people, to include little children and little girls. They're not just viewed as a get into the country free ticket, but are viewed as sexual objects that they can make money off of repeatedly. It's grotesque. It's sickening, but it unfortunately happens a lot. And anything we do to encourage the view in Central America that you can pay a few $1,000s to one of these traffickers, have your child come to the United States and get released here, is only going to create more incentives for these human traffickers.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the E-Verify, the legislation that, like you said, you're working on right now. It really is about, we have to disincentivize. We do need the border security, we do need the wall, but if they come here and they can't find employment, then there's no reason to come here.
That is one reason why an E-Verify system at the workplace is a supplement to a border barrier. It's a supplement to Border Patrol agents. There's no single solution to our illegal immigration problem. It's kind of like, if you look at a band, a band can't just have one instrument in it. It's got to have multiple instruments if it wants to make great music. Same thing goes with illegal immigration. You need border barriers, you need Border Patrol agents, you need more detention centers and judges, but you have to cut off the jobs magnet, and the simplest way to do that and to protect American jobs is E-Verify at the workplace.
Wow. Senator Tom Cotton, really appreciate you coming on the program, spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. Yeah, have a great day. Senator Tom Cotton, everybody. It's always great to have him on. And I'm telling you, the stuff with this stuff that he's promoting with this E-Verify is obviously, like he said, supplemental to border security. And of course, I love the idea of some of these bigger reforms that maybe can't get traction yet. But the idea, other countries do this, where if you want to come to, this country, I think Australia does it, others, you're going to have to provide that you, prove that you have, some sort of skill set. It's about the type of immigrants we want. Because the bottom line is, if we had unlimited resources, then it would be one thing, but we don't have unlimited resources. And, so this immigration thing is about national security. Okay, so we need a secure border, right? Yeah, you do have terrorists that try to come in and do American harm. You do have the MS-13. You do have the angel moms who have lost their children because of illegal immigration. You have all that. But then there's also something, and nobody wants to talk about this, but there's also something called economic security. You heard Senator Cotton talk about it there. This is the idea that we need to, for the benefit of the Americans living here, we don't need to promote policies that are going to make them poorer. And even if you're a progressive and you agree with a social safety net, right? These progressives drive me nuts. Like, so they want these welfare programs. Okay, and I can get behind social safety net for those who truly need it. You have these welfare programs that are made less solvent. Okay, they're made insolvent by unchecked illegal immigration. But in order to get them to agree, that they have to agree that countries with borders, we want a safety net, but we want the safety net for Americans. Oh, that is somehow so radically offensive these days. But isn't that what we should be doing? Shouldn't our policies help a majority of people that live here? But the left doesn't want these borders anymore. They just don't think, they think it's an antiquated notion. They don't understand that borders represent ideas. Go look at a picture of the Korean Peninsula at night. I've said this a million times. The Korean Peninsula at night.